You're not just part of the conversation. You are actually the catalyst for helping to move this industry forward.
In today's guest, Scarlett Sieber is a Fintech exec, global speaker, author, and chief strategy and growth officer at Money 2020.
What was the moment where you actually realized, I'm not just part of the fintech conversation, I want to shape it?
I think there's been a few pivotal moments here at Money 2020 in particular, where we've been around for 12 plus years. We've grown across geographies, and the importance of the power of the brand has helped do that. Platforming the right people on our stages really helped to move the needle on how we think about shaping our industry.
In this episode, from startup grind to global stage, we dive into Scarlett's journey, from redefining leadership to balancing family and ambition, and how intention drives lasting impact.
Be intentional. It's okay to be uncomfortable, and that is where a lot of growth comes from, being a bit uncomfortable.
Hey everyone, today's guest is Scarlett Sber, fintech exec, global speaker, author, and chief strategy and growth officer at Money 2020, the company that's reshaping global fintech events and scaling towards 100 million in revenue. She's gone from startup founder to boardroom strategist, consulted banks across the globe, co-authored a book on embedded finance, and helped redefine what a festival looks like in the fintech world. Scarlett, welcome to this show. And you've been on both sides, the scrappy startup founder and now exec at a global brand scaling to 9 figures. What was the moment where you actually realized, I'm not just part of the fintech conversation, I want to shape it?
First of all, thank you for that lovely intro, and just sitting back and listening to that and looking at some of the other guests that you've had. What an amazing space that you've taken to kind of tell those stories and get to the real of it. So to your question, what are the things that have helped me, sit back and look when it relates to fintech, of not just going to sit as part of this and actually shape it? I think there's been a few pivotal moments here at Money 2020 in particular, where we've been around for 12 plus years. As we've continued to grow, as you said, we are 100 million USD plus in revenue. As we've grown across geographies and everything else, I think the importance of the power of the brand has helped do that. And then making sure that platforming the right people on our stages, and some of those conversations have really helped to move the needle. And I'll give you one pretty specific example. One of the things that we do that we don't publicize and talk about is we do closed door CEO dinners at all of our events. And, it's phones off, fully present. We don't want to post about it. We don't want people to talk about it. And I personally hand curate every single person who comes to those dinners. Takes a lot of time. It's a labor of love. And every single time I keep asking myself, why do I keep doing this? But in any case, it's always worth it at the end. And long story short, run into the guy on the floor the next day. And he said to me, I dreamt about crypto, Scarlett. Like, I'm going to talk to our board about how we're going to, really be reimagining our digital asset strategy. So that was one of the moments where it's like, okay, you're not just part of the conversation and the platform where this happens. You are actually the catalyst for helping to move this industry forward. And, the where we think about and who we put on our stages really matters. Of course, the big names are really easy to do that. There's some big announcements, but it is the next big companies, and being intentional about and taking bold risks on who we think those are and platforming them early goes back to how we think about shaping our industry.
I love it. And in terms of Money 2020, talk to me about the journey out there.
Money 2020 is the largest global independent platform. As you mentioned in the onset, we're a fintech event. We're growing beyond that. We've actually just announced a few months ago that we're launching a global awards program as well. But we have locations across all over the world. But in our journey of 12 years, we've actually been acquired twice. So the second acquisition is by a company called Infomous, which is the largest global events company in the world. And they have a JV with the Saudi government. So we're also going to Riyadh in September this year. So in terms of global presence, that's where we're at.
Do you have closed door dinners even on the other locations with the CEOs?
Every location has that moment. And it was something that, it's very easy, especially being an events business, historically being commercially driven as we should. And there's a lot of people who want to get access to that room. But especially when you're dealing with the upper echelons of people, the way that I always sit back and think about it is like, what are the money can't buy moments? So it doesn't even have to be at the nicest, fanciest restaurant, because they've been there and done that. We do try to make sure that they're at nice places, but that's not the number one priority. It is about that experience where they can't happen anywhere else. And it's actually a lot about what you're doing on your podcast, which is about humanizing the people, because it's very easy to get caught up in the facade of the title and the company. But at the end of the day, they're people as well. And our industry, my industry within financial services, is highly regulated and highly complex. And the way that this industry moves forward is by different parts working together. And so I hope that I can act and we can act and our platform can act as a facilitator to move that more quickly.
And do they actually leverage their kind of engagement after the dinner?
Yeah, so I leave that up to them. I don't overly formalize it because, especially with the seniority of the people who are part of this, they got busy lives. It's quite common. So what I'll typically do is I'll say, hey, here are the people who were there. Don't ever give the emails because, again, that's their choice. If they want to connect, they will. But it's quite often that a handful will come and reach out and say, oh, I really want to talk to that person at that table. Do you mind introducing me? Of course, in that case, I will. But I don't over formalize it because I think the beauty is in the simplicity and the focus of that night. And then naturally traction happens. Another really fun example was a very big fintech and another large bank who were actually publicly in dispute. It was all over the news. And the two of them sat next to each other at dinner, and both of them separately came to me and said, was this intentional? Like, we got more traction and, kind of got over our issues more than we have in the last 3 years that we've been dealing with the legal courts. We just need to sit in a room together and kind of talk. So that was fun. That was also not intentional. I wish I could have taken credit for, forcing that in, but I would be a little bit worried about the output of that. So it just happened to be that the two of them sat next to each other. So that to me is where the magic happens versus kind of trying to force prolonged pieces afterwards. And I do keep the guest list fresh every time. So it's not the same people that come over and over. It's net new people, because that to me is how you build an ecosystem, is connecting the right people and connecting new people with new people. So it's a labor of love, as I said.
Fantastic. In terms of Money 2020, how do you attract them and why do they want to be a part of your journey?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So why do people come? So I think part one is the world that we live in is complex. Financial services is complex. The movement of money is complex. It may seem simple to the end user. It's not. There is 10 million steps in between and a lot of different parties who touch that money from movement A to B, whether you be a consumer or a business. So that is what we do. We started as a payments conference and we've really expanded into an ecosystem conference or event, whatever words you want to use, where payments is definitely still at the core along with banking, but even on banking, it is typically on that payment side. So it allows these companies to meet with the larger ecosystem. We've got the regulators, we've got the VCs, we've got the startups, we've got, and the startups can be broad. You got some of the insurance, you got reg tech, whatever else in there, and then the banks, and then the credit unions and the payments all coming together and getting business done. So really it is about being not only, efficient with your time, because these people can be all over the world and they're all in one place, but also effective, because it's not just the people are there, but it's the right people are there who can actually, make business get done.
Fantastic. How big is the company in terms of the workforce itself or the employees? And what's the distribution model out there?
Yeah, so I'd say for simplicity's sake, let's say 160 to 180, which is quite big. And I think especially for people who don't come from events, I didn't come from events. I've now been in events for 5 years and it still doesn't feel like I'm from events. But there's a lot of different moving parts across all this that has to make the magic happen, where you would see 3 or 4 days, but actually it's a year's worth of work to get to that moment. With the acquisition that I mentioned to you too, we do have some different centralized resources that we rely on for some very specific things. But yeah, I'd say a safe number is to say between 160 and 180, working on different things. And some of those ones, again, are like shared resources. We have some other great brands in the portfolio that work across the board, but we've got a nice dedicated team to grow to the scale that we're at.
Awesome. What's the real story, your kind of yes moment?
I was always very good at numbers. I thought I was going to be an accountant. The university that I went to had a very strong recruitment rate to the Big Four, so that's the path that I thought I was going to be in. And I went and had this kind of aha moment, went and studied abroad, lived in China, knew that's not what I'm going to do with my life. I ended up joining kind of at the bottom rung of a startup, did that for 3.5 years, ended up getting co-founder status, co-founder equity, had an amazing partner in that venture. I started thinking about it and I took the leap. So, I tripped into banking. I didn't have any banking experience, but I did have the tech side, and that's what BBVA was looking for. So that to me was a testament of them, taking the right calculated risks, because they wanted to grow out their tech portfolio and get more startups to either invest in, to partner with, to acquire, etc. And that became what I was doing every day.
Okay. And did you enjoy that during that journey, or how was that?
I did. It was scary, but I did enjoy it. It's so easy when you go into a situation to have preconceived ideas of what something is. Startups is such a vague term that could actually be, it's industry agnostic, but some of those were fintech entrepreneurs or were working in the sector.
And just for the audience listening in embedded finance, how would you explain that to a layman in 30 seconds or 1 minute?
Yeah, it's just how you pay to make it as seamless and easy as possible. It's beyond payments, it's lending too, but just thinking about anything about the movement of money in your everyday life. Yeah. So especially now, if you think post-COVID, a lot, depending on where we are in the world, a lot of you are using this to go pay. That's embedded finance, to put it simply.
Love it. Now talk to me about, so you had the journey from BBVA to all these startups, entrepreneurship, and then you have kids right now. I mean, how do you manage all that? How do you manage that whole balance of maintaining such a hectic life, family life, and then now you want to write a second book too?
Well, the truthful answer is I don't. Balance is I'm just not great at it, because when I am passionate about something, I give it my all. So the balance piece has been honestly one of the hardest parts about having kids for me. So I'd say, but the main things that I sit and think about is, well, first of all kids are different. So I'm still not great at the balance piece, and it's something that I'm really working on. But what I am focusing on is when I am present in one or present in the other, to be as intentional as possible.
Okay. What would be the advice you would give to moms starting off, having massive doubts or guilt feeling? I have 2 kids, I have a kid, right? But they're also so ambitious, they want to have a career too.
I'd say two things. One is there's never a right answer, and no matter what you do, you're always going to feel guilty. So just do what feels the most comfortable for you, and whatever path it is the right path. Actually, I'd say three things too. What you thought parenthood looks like is so far away from reality, and give yourself a little bit of grace because you're going to need it. And then find your parent tribe. I mean, it could be moms, dads, whatever. But what's interesting is with all the different facets of my life, I have parents that look, act, feel completely different. Some are full-time stay-at-home parents. Some of them have schedules and a pace that is very similar to mine. And I like having both of those outlets for different reasons, because they're relatable for different ways. And It's all going to be okay. It's not the end of the world if this one thing doesn't go the way that you expect it to go.
I love it. How do you maintain your physical and mental fitness when it comes to that?
One of the things that I've noticed about myself over time, because I am quite adaptable and flexible, is I still do thrive the most when there's routine. And that's been the hard part also about the kid. I've always had the erratic travel schedule, but adding the kids makes it even a bit more complicated. Back to being intentional about making sure you're setting the time, because what I have the tendency to do is prioritize the work and prioritize the kids, and then my self-care gets last on the list. So it's just something that you just have to be very vigilant about. And even small things for me on the mental side too is just, and again, this is labors of love and lessons over time, is
Great. And who's part of that, your inner circle, that keeps you grounded?
for sure my husband. He's definitely the number one. We've been together for 16 years, so he's got to see every facet of the journey. And I think that friend group, right? So it's the friends who I've had since I was a little girl, because I grew up in a really small town. So that group has been with me for a long time. And staying close to them, obviously, my parents, etc. But then that new friend group, to the point we were talking about earlier, of people who have similar paths to mine and have the same struggles as well. So I like to have multiple groups, but I'll always start to the core with my other half.
Great. You got your team. How big is your team right now?
It depends how we quantify it, but let's say 40 to 50 on any given day.
How do you go about identifying high performers or talent for your direct reports, if you have that structure?
Yes. So I do. I definitely focus on the people. Yes, the structure is important. And before we even get there, I know I look for the gaps that we have. So, what is the best thing that will create long term sustainable growth for us? So it's long term sustainable growth, but then it's also about maintaining that brand identity and that brand presence. Because even though we're at the intersection of finance and technology, we're a bit funky, we're a bit cool, and that's really important. And it's like the core like DNA of our brand that isn't always quantifiable on paper.
Right.
I try to make sure that I allow them and I give them the opportunity and autonomy to focus on that and remove the roadblocks that could happen in a traditional corporate environment that allows them to do that successfully without getting bogged down on some of those pieces, and also enabling and supporting them with a structure and a team around them that can be the counterbalance for where they go big picture, high creativity. There's someone there that is making sure that the deadlines are being hit on time and the puller of the strings behind the scenes to get the right people on board. So another thing of, just learning as you go, but that has proven so far to be the most effective way to grow and scale the team the way that we have.
Great. And what do you think when it comes to failure? How do you actually treat failure for yourself, and how do people within your team look up to you and you're like against the wall?
Yeah, a question as old as time, right? So I think there's a few things. I am notoriously self constructive. I'm always looking at being a better version of myself, and I'm looking at our unit and our team and our brand for that matter to be better versions of itself. So even thinking about it from a competitive landscape, yes, we're aware of competitors, but like our competition number one is us. So I think part of that is the mentality, but I think a different way to phrase it in my mind is about like calculated risks. So failure is fine as long as we have it in a measured way.
What's your leadership style, and what are the top 3 values you think you have when it comes to leading?
Such a good question. So I would say the leadership style it's about being people first and finding unique talent and attributes about people and allowing them to shine. It's about inspiring and empowering, so being there to be their biggest champions and push them for greatness. I constantly push them outside of their comfort zones. It's about encouragement and it's about inspiring as well. So
Yeah. How important is that training or mentoring aspect within the company now to make success a big word?
yeah, it's important. So, because we are a big public corporate company, we do have very formalized, structured leadership and mentorship programs. I think that's true. But in general, it's not uncommon that a person that is more junior in their career would be in the same room with the C suite and we're having active conversations and listening to that. So, if I were to articulate that maybe in one sentence, it's almost about mentorship by doing, because
Right.
we put them in the positions to be in those rooms to have those conversations and to get that feedback and like learn and grow there. But also, we do have at the broader level this more structured, formalized mentorship programs, etc.
Okay, great, excellent. Let's just go back to to the company itself. Money 2020 has gone from 2 million USD to nearly 100 million in revenue. What are the kind of biggest like holy shit moments in that scale up for you?
So I'll speak for what I've actually been
Sure.
present for, because I did a stint where my 2020 was my first client in 2019, but in my current capacity of the last 4+ years, so going back to Asia was a big moment of that. I'd say even in 2021, the comeback from COVID, we started this podcast like we're a live event. That's our primary business. And so seeing who was coming through for that and who wasn't, because like with a bit of fluctuation, our costs are our costs, right? Like there's a bit of variable, but the main costs are
Yeah.
sunken. So whether we go here or here, it's kind of the same cost for us. So there was a lot of holy shit moments there. I still, every time before I go on that, main stage, still get those goosebumps of like, I can't believe this is my life. Like, I can't
Right.
believe I get to go talk to this industry and that they're listening. Like, this is pretty amazing. And they trust us and they, support us. And
And I think those kind of conversations lead to, like you said, relationships beyond that event itself, right? How do you rebrand something from the inside?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We were still part of a public company called Essential, and I spent a lot of time. We had Capital Markets Day once a year with our investors and analysts, and we depending on where we're at, we talked: is it an event? Is it a festival? Our sister brand at Essential is Cannes Lions, which
Right.
is always known as a festival. So there was a bit of a conversation about that then. When we got acquired by Informa created a division known as Festivals, which is a bucket and an umbrella that we sit under. So Lions and the other brands under the marketing festivals division, Money 2020, and others are the Fintech festivals division. Then we have gaming, with GDC, we've got cyber with Black Hat, and then a tech festivals portfolio. And so there's like some few specific guiding principles essentially that really help make what Informa thinks about as a festival. And a lot of it is about meet, discover, play, and grow. And that's kind of like the four guiding foundations that everything else is built around.
And when it comes to tech, and more specifically towards AI nowadays, how is that kind of reshaping or reshaping your company?
Yeah, so it's so many ways. From how we've started a lot of this conversation around what happens at the show, the companies who are at the show, some more dedicated to AI than others. We did a white paper about actual AI adoption in financial services. The surprise about this is that actually financial services is a fast mover. Fast is relative, but has more quickly adopted AI than many other sectors. So that's really interesting. So making sure that we have an active seat at the table for those conversations. So that's how our brand shows up on that perspective. From an internal perspective, which I think was the first part of your question.
Understood. What's the worst advice you hear too often in the fintech space?
Break things and go fast.
Break things and go fast. Okay.
That's not good advice. Like, that's not the industry that we are in. Like, maybe break things eventually, but I'd say instead of break, maybe like alter things and whatever. We're getting to a place now for a myriad of reasons as to why that is probably more achievable than it was a decade ago, but we still have a long way to go. And I feel pretty confident that people who come into this industry think they can just, they see a gap, let's go quickly solve it. It's not a slow move. Like, even if you think about a company like Chime, a digital neobank in the US that just went public about a month ago on NASDAQ. Chime started almost a decade ago. Like, there was a real journey, and there were some highs and lows, and were they going to be around?
And what is it one thing Money 2020 does better than any other events or festival companies?
Bringing the collective ecosystem together to get business done at an unparalleled pace, while also having a really fucking good time doing it. And it's the combination of that to me feels like the secret sauce there.
Got it. What's next for you in this journey?
Off to Riyadh next. Looking forward to, I've been there now before, but looking forward to our first show in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Next is just closing off this Money Awards, and actually a much deserved holiday is what's really, really next. So very much looking forward to that.
Oh, love that. I think that before we close the show off, what's one thing that has stood out from you from this whole show? What or the action item you would say to someone listening onto this? What's the one takeaway they could go away with?
I would say two things, because I can't ever follow rules. Be intentional, whether that be about your asks, about your time, about whatever, because we talked about that in a few different ways. So be intentional, and it's okay to be uncomfortable, but to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And that is where so much of what you talk about on your podcast is about the growth. And like, a lot of growth comes from being a bit uncomfortable, measured uncomfortability.
Love it. Scarlett, great having you on the show. That's a wrap for today. Thanks.
Thank you.